Hey, what's up? I'm Tori, Digital Marketing Manager at Reviewwave, and I'm here with Dr. Capra, President at Genesis, and he's going to chat with us today about how new technology and artificial intelligence will change the healthcare field in the very near future. So thank you so much for being on with us today and sharing more about this super important topic. But to kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the Genesis software?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Tori. Really happy to be here. Love the Reviewwave family over there. I've spent some time at the office, and really cool culture you guys have been building over there. Hopefully I'll be able to get out there again sometime soon.
Yeah, anytime.
I don't think I've met you in person yet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's been all virtual since you've come along. So I'll try to keep it quick about myself. I'm a chiropractor. I graduated in 2002, practiced in Princeton, New Jersey, and had a really nice family practice in a gym, actually in a Gold's Gym, if you remember Gold's Gyms. So really cool atmosphere, very successful by most standards, not to pat myself on the back, but it was a nice practice. And I kept running into the same problems when it came to patients mostly, and losing patients that would leave the office and not come back. We had really good retention generally, and by most standards we had good retention. But what would happen is the typical thing where you're driving or you're at the gym or you're on the weekend, and you can never really let the practice off your mind. And of course, where you wake up in the morning is what happened to me. And you just kind of remember a patient you hadn't seen in a while. And then you go and you find out why that patient left. And as soon as you find out the reason why that patient left, which is usually a breakdown in your process of follow-up, because a patient leaving an office happens, but usually you should know that why they left, when they left. But when you remember a patient, they left without you even knowing about it. And so what would keep happening, and usually it's a process breakdown, a training issue. First thing is, well, how many other patients did that happen on? And then you go try to find that out. And at first it was with paper, and then we got software, and the problem persisted. And even though it was better with software, it still happened because it left a lot up to memory management. It left a lot up to my staff remembering our processes and our checklists and our what have you, and that happening every single time perfectly. Even when we're at the busy times and our peak times, things tend to break down the most. Actually, and sometimes they break down even more. If you've ever been to a restaurant or been a waiter in a restaurant, I have.
Yep.
It's like service gets worse sometimes when the restaurant is slow too. So you got to be knowing all these things and keeping track of all the different critical steps in a patient experience to make sure they happen perfectly every single time. If they don't, you lose that patient. Long story short, I lost a patient one time that actually wound up committing suicide. And again, when I went to the chart, even with software, it was without software, it was a chart at the time. We just saw that, or I saw that, it was a breakdown in a lot of different processes. The care plan wasn't done properly. The recalls weren't done properly. Financials were a mess. And it was heartbreaking and really hard to accept that we dropped the ball on somebody that I was sure would have been helped with chiropractic care and maybe wouldn't have taken his own life. And so I didn't have a solution to the problem. I still, I got software, it got better, right? Retention got better, things got, still the same problem would happen. You never really leave the office. You just kind of have it in the back of your mind at all times. And so just by chance, I met a couple of guys. One was a PhD in artificial intelligence, which is one of the topics you're going to mention today. And the other was a computer science graduate from Princeton, which is where my practice was. And they had built, at the time, a system for billing, medical billing, insurance claims. That was online in the cloud, that was leveraging artificial intelligence. And this was, 15 years ago. So it was way ahead of its time. But what I noticed and what I realized is that artificial intelligence changed the way I was able to collect on insurance. So I went from whatever I was collecting, which was really good money. But I went to at my collections when I implemented the artificial intelligence and the automation, my collections went up by 40%. And it made it much easier on me and my staff to get the insurance claims out and to see where everything was in real time. So that's just one way that artificial intelligence can change a practice in a real fast way. And on the billing side, insurance claims, but also on the cash side. And so Genesis, what I realized is that same methodology that was being used to really put a stranglehold on never missing a claim, if you would, insurance claim, was the missing link for technology in chiropractic. It was really because just to give you an example, with as soon as I opened the system, I could see with one number how many claims the billing team, the follow-up team had to call the insurance company on that day. And I knew if they did it or they did not do it by the end of the day. And I could see the claims, I could see what they were saying. It was transparent, right? And I thought if I had that same number for all my patients and all the steps in my processes, that if I the day with one number, if it were zero, we did everything possible to make sure we followed up and gave those patients a great experience. I know our retention would be much higher. Our patients would get a great experience. They would stay longer, get better results, and refer other people, which affects cash collections as well as insurance collections, right? And so that's how Genesis started. So we became partners, those guys and myself, we became partners. We started actually with just the billing, and then built on top of the billing with documentation and scheduling and point of sale. And now we're integrations with Reviewwave and other really cool technologies out there on the market. So that's a really small way, that very direct way that it can change, how much insurance you can collect. There's much more to billing. We don't have a ton of time, but there's much more to how insurance can be affected. And how we actually, by using a system like a Genesis in the cloud with all the data aggregated, we're actually being able to beat insurance companies at their own game on a mass scale, where we're able to fight through legislation with the data that we're collecting, where we can catch insurance companies, not telling exactly the truth, things like that. So I don't want to go too far. I can probably talk forever, but what else do you need to know from me?
Yeah. Well, I think that was a great story. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like one of the biggest pieces that we hear from feedback from our clients is how they're not tech savvy and they're worried about really embracing technology in their practice, and they fear that some of their older clients will also resist. So how do you excite people about the technology and get them to really understand that it's super user friendly?
Well, I think if you can't use an email or something like that, and usually by the time they're talking to you, they probably are somewhat tech savvy. So if you can use a Reviewwave, you can use Genesis. There's limitations to certain types of doctors that just, they just don't, they're not at that point. They're not going to get to that, but they're very far between, especially these days. If you can use an email or a Google Calendar or, pretty much anything, or if you're even used to doing documentation for your patients, you'll be fine. And then if your staff it's the same thing. If they're in your practice, and that may be just part of your hiring process to make sure they have a minimum level of some kind of technological knowledge. But you don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to understand coding. As a matter of fact, I don't understand coding. I don't do that. My business partners might do that. One's a chief architect, right? So I still to this day don't understand in-depth coding. You never have to.
Yeah.
But you need to know what you want to do. And usually what excites doctors and staff about Genesis is they see how it can directly impact the patient retention that we kind of just spoke about, the collections overall, cash, insurance, and their compliance when there is insurance, or just with board regulations, things like that. They see how Genesis is a totally different type of technology. The reason I really was excited about Genesis for myself when we started was this was an enterprise level technology, business management technology that leveraged artificial intelligence and automation to get a totally different result than you can get on any other type of, practice management software. Those types of nice. They're great. I had one, but they're just built from a different perspective. It's not built from the perspective of making sure, telling my team, telling your team, the doctor's team, the doctor themselves, you have to do these things before the end of the day, rather than them, going to 10,000 different reports and memory managing processes and all that. The system is just notifying you of the things you have to do, and by doing so, lets you know what might have been missed before the end of the day. When you can see that and you know that your processes were done every single day across your revenue, your retention, your compliance, and it's faster and you don't have to waste time, they see the benefit to their revenue, their retention, their compliance, and they see that it's going to take them less time. So that's what they really get pumped up about.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to share this stat that I recently read with you. It was done by the Foundation of Chiropractic Progress, and it actually mentioned that 63% of Gen Z, so that is the ages 18 to 24, mentioned that they were more interested in chiropractic care over any other form of healthcare, which I think is huge. That's showing that the emerging generations would rather go to a chiropractor than go to a physician or even get a massage or acupuncture or anything along those lines. So I think that that's huge for the chiropractic industry, and we're kind of on this cusp of it really taking off bigger than we've ever seen it. So I'm excited to be along this journey, and I think that technology is really what people need to start embracing to really engage that age group, really set themselves up for success. So let's talk a little bit about that and how you think that the software is really going to change the healthcare field in general.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a really great statistic. Yeah, there's never been a better time for chiropractic. That's really just what this says, right? So people are just ready. The time they're ready, especially with they're tired of being told, that their bodies are not capable of withstanding a virus, or that they don't have a choice in the matter, or and chiropractic is the antithesis of that. Your body can heal. It just needs no interference. Of course, I'm speaking to the choir, but so how is technology going to change that? Well, what I believe, this is my perspective, is technology, especially with artificial intelligence. And by the way, there are cloud-based systems, right? A Reviewwave is in the cloud. Mm-hmm. There's artificial intelligence is also in the cloud. Just because a technology is in the cloud does not mean it uses artificial intelligence. They're not the same thing. But so I believe what has to happen for chiropractic is we still have to drive the narrative. We have to get out in front. We have to be telling our story. We're not great as a profession at doing that. We're not great as a profession at teaching other professions and proving the fact that chiropractic works. One of the reasons we are not good at that is because we don't have the resources to do that, and we haven't. We don't have the money, the technology. We don't have pharmaceutical companies dumping billions of dollars into research for another drug. And we're kind of fractured as a profession to begin with, and we're not a huge profession. We're only about 60 to, the best estimate is 100,000 people to begin with, doctors. So we have to leverage technology in a few different ways. We have to help leverage technology to make our jobs way more efficient to increase our capacity as a profession. I'll let you guys do the math. If there's 70,000 chiropractors in the United States and there's 320 million people, do the math on if every person in the country got seen once a week, how many patients would every chiropractor have to see in order to serve just this country, not to mention billions of people around the world, right? So we're nowhere near as efficient as we have to be. So one thing has to happen is we have to get more efficient. We can't waste a second. We can't waste a second looking for a report. That's what Genesis does, right? It tells you, you don't go looking. Artificial intelligence is going to do some other things too. Just through technology, artificial intelligence is now making it super simple for patients to fill in forms if they're capable of doing that. Also for the doctor to build their exams and documentations from day to day, alerting them if they've missed something in their documentation, or alerting them of best practices for a certain type of patient. Of course, I believe also we have to make a lot more money, right? We have to make sure we keep insurance companies accountable that they owe us as things stand today. But we also have to prove the fact that by getting chiropractic care, they're going to be avoiding drugs and major surgeries in the future, right? So by proving that research that this is actually happening, so that insurance companies will not only reimburse us what we deserve today as a chiropractor for an adjustment, but on a much larger scale, because they'll see it as an investment in their patients and a return on their own investment, right? Because now they don't have to pay for unneeded drugs and surgery. So to do that, we need research. To get research, the trick is we don't have a way to collect patient information, results, whether it's quality of life to prove the efficacy of chiropractic, just that improves people's lives, or specific conditions, or what have you. We don't do it because it's hard to gather data from a large demographic across the whole country, which really comes down to what we said the patient had and what they wound up with and what we did on them, and, right? So we're artificial intelligence, and this is also comes into another word which we didn't mention, is called big data analysis. When you have a cloud-based system that helps doctors make sure they don't miss things on notes, or tells the patient based on condition or symptoms or just well-being to fill out certain outcome assessment tools, which are standardized based on what they are saying they have, we don't have the data to prove it. Artificial intelligence is already doing this right now with Genesis, where it's telling the patient what form to fill in based on what they're saying they have or what happened to them, so that we can gather that data from initial exam to re-exam, and even in between visits, that data is carried over. So if you can imagine not just one doctor that may do great documentation on their patients, if we have thousands and thousands of doctors doing great documentation and getting those quality outcome assessment tool assessments done, now we can meld that data, not only in the effectiveness of the care, but the reimbursement that was provided for that care. And that data, that's happening right now. So we're gathering this data in this huge database, and that database gets smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter over time. So that's going to be huge, because then we take that data and that drives policy with insurance carriers, with state boards, with educational schools, so schools, the colleges. It actually will drive the profession forward, so that when we're out there, when we get our act together with all this money, and we're actually out there putting public relation campaigns out there, teaching people about chiropractic on a mass scale, we can actually point to some real data. And there's some really good research out there, but we're not doing it nearly on the scale that we need to do it. This is where the big data and artificial intelligence are kind of all coming together. It's also, I think I see AI doing some really great things when it comes to just education of patients and giving them supporting products based on their condition, just suggesting certain things to patients. There's a lot coming down the pipe. Using that same data will help us fight insurance companies, which is, wasn't my big thing. It wasn't a big insurance practice. I had a family practice, saw tons of kids, but it was just a fact of the matter in my practice. So I'm excited about it, and Genesis has been on the cutting edge of that this whole time. So we're still leading the pack there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are all really great points. I think one of the biggest fears with chiropractors and technology is losing that personal touch and losing control over their practice as well. And we really want to change the narrative and get them to see that they actually gain control over their schedules and their practice by using technology, because you're able to, take charge of your schedule. You can show when you're available or when you're not available, and you can easily refill slots when people miss their appointments. And also with the patient experience, you can really elevate it, because you hit every single important touch point along the way from their very first visit to their 90th visit. And so really getting people to see the benefit and that you're not losing that personal touch, you're adding to that personal touch, because there's just way too many things to do throughout the day that we can't get to every single patient and call them and video chat them or whatever it is, to add that more personal feel. But even just getting a text message these days, feeling thought of, is a huge difference in that patient journey. So how does your software really help with those fears and frustrations that chiropractors feel?
Well, yeah, so that's a great question. So from the perspective of, if you look at Genesis just as on the screen kind of thing, one of the best ways to make sure you can still give that person the eye-to-eye contact when they walk in and give them a warm welcome and make sure that they know that they're cared for is making sure you never miss a step in your own process. And to do that, you have to make sure your staff, you and your staff, are not wasting time doing things that don't facilitate those things, right? So for example, having missed visits or re-exams that are scheduled, they have a 12-visit plan, let's say, and they have a re-exam scheduled. When staff and doctors are too busy because they're doing busy work based on memory management, for example, like a no-show in most systems is in the report. No-show report, or patients that have no future appointment, or patients that haven't been seen in a while. Those are all important things. So you have to reach out to that person. But in order to do that in most systems, you have to go find those people in the system, right? You have to go find a report, run it, call those people. Usually what happens is you lose a patient, then you find that patient and realize there's a whole bunch of other patients that you missed, right? But you got to be proactive about the patient experience. So that's where Genesis, for example, is driving all those factors. This patient hasn't been seen in 14 days. They left without a future appointment. They have a balance that's too high. They missed an appointment. They have a re-exam coming up. What do we need to do to be prepared for the re-exam coming up? So if you're going to look at run reports all day long and have to remember processes, and then you don't call that patient if that's part of your processes when they check in a visit before their re-exam or their re-sign, and you don't even say anything to them, and they know, because they're paying for this stuff, they know what you said you were going to do, and when you don't do what you're going to do, that's when you have a problem. When they ask you for a balance and you can't give them an accurate balance, that's when you're going to have a problem. They want to know that you care, and they want to know you're on top of it. Like you didn't just sign them up for a care plan and then we got you and we'll see you, and when you fall off, you fall off. That's how they feel if you don't on visit. If let's say their re-exams on visit 12, and when they check in, your staff is not like, Tori, so great to see you. Your re-exam's coming up next visit. It's going to take a few extra minutes. We have it at this time. Does that still work for you? Here's something I want you to read about that. What's going to happen on that visit. We want to make sure we track your progress and blah, 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 right? Whatever the script is, but they need to feel cared for. As soon as you're busy doing nonsense work that really should come to you, you're already too distracted. As soon as you miss that with no way to find it, because what happens in a report management system, like the converse of what I said with Genesis, the work is coming to your team in like a console, right? They can see what they have to do. And when patients are checking in, it's telling them what to do. What's the converse of that? There's a report somewhere, right? So let's say, Tori, you're in charge of re-exams and no-shows and all that stuff. You have to go find that, right? I'm the doctor. I own the practice. If you missed one of those things, how would you know that? Yeah. Reports aren't actionable. They're not accountable. They're not trackable. They're not. Maybe you called that no-show. Maybe you didn't, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you rescheduled them. Maybe you didn't. As the owner of the practice, I have no idea what happened and what didn't happen. I'm not going to run. I have my own ton of my own work to do, right? How do I know that you did what you're supposed to do and you didn't miss something? And if you did, I could help you, right? So we need systems that, again, are proactively telling us the things that are missing, the things that we are not doing to give that patient a great experience. Genesis is the only one I know that does this right now, but that's the only way to get better. And be more efficient to see increase our capacity as a profession. We need proactive systems to manage the patient experience that tell us what to do. or what we missed, or if we missed. Patients, it's heartbreaking when a patient leaves an office and you have no idea why. And not to mention from a business perspective, it's really bad business. You invested a lot of time, energy, money in training and acquiring a new customer from a business perspective. And the easiest way to grow a business is to keep repeat customers. And simply because you're trying to memory manage too many things and you have nothing to keep you really accountable day to day to day, patients leave. It's just a bad business model.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've personally seen several chiropractors, and I know some of them are just, while I'm there at my adjustment, they're on the phones, they're trying to send an email, they're trying to do 5 other things, and no fault to their own. I know it's a crazy busy practice, but at the same time, it takes away from that patient experience for sure, and you want to feel that connection when you're there. So I think I love your point about being proactive there. That's awesome.
I want to say one more thing about how Genesis helps practices create a better customer experience. Right here is one of the best is we do what we do really well, and we don't try to do what other people do really well. And we find synergies in companies that have really great technology and product and service, like Reviewwave, and integrate with those seamlessly. Since we're both in the cloud, those two things are seamless, right? And that data is flowing back and forth, and we're getting better and better at our own integration and the functionality and that our customers, our mutual customers, experience. But one way that we improve as Genesis, the patient experience, is by having integrations with really high quality products like Reviewwave. I know you know Fortis, for example, and Cash Practice and all these other guys. Those integrations were not going to be Reviewwave, nor do we want to be. We have plenty to do on our side, right? But finding really good partners that do it and do it well. I think one of the mistakes some of the other technologies have made over the years is they tried to be all things to all people, or try to force their clients to use their new, text messaging system or their new payment processing company. And what happens is the customer loses choice, right? And since they're forced to use it anyway, they don't really innovate. They're not really evolving over time, and they're not good at all of those things. So the product usually is substandard, and the customer gets a worse experience, and ultimately that's a patient problem. That's the patient experience problem.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I know we're kind of coming up here on time, so I've got one last question for you. For those chiros that don't know or don't use Genesis, why should they use your software?
Well, I think if you really want to take your patient retention and your patient experience, I'll say overall, to a whole new level, really, in other words, being able to use technology to get your results you haven't gotten before. So if you don't have artificial intelligence and that automation telling your team what to do and giving you an easy way to make sure everything happens perfectly every single day, you'll have a great practice. It just won't be to what it could be. So Genesis gets extraordinary results in terms compared to all other technology. The revenue of your practice, the patient retention. Obviously, there's a synergy between patient retention and revenue because patients stay longer, right? They get better results. They refer their friends. They may even be willing to pay you a premium more than they're paying for your services right now. And your staff can do all that in less time. So without a doubt, that's it. Help patients, help more patients get better results, make more money doing it, and ease the burden on you and your team. It's without a doubt. And you just can't get it with another technology. Sorry.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Same here. I appreciate you. Thank you.